but they lack a number of very important traits that allowed land plants to actually be land plants. The terrestrial environment is an extremely hostile environment to living organisms because living organisms are mostly made of water, and water evaporates away from a living organism quite rapidly when it's out in the open air. What that does is it changes the concentrations of all sorts of ions and molecules within cells, and that causes proteins to denature and stop functioning. It doesn't take much dehydration for an organism to die. The first innovation, according to the fossil record, that allowed these organisms that we know as land plants to conquer land was the evolution of a watertight cuticle. It's a waxy layer on the outside of a plant that inhibits water loss. However, this structure in and of itself poses some serious problems for an organism because plants, like other organisms, have to have gas exchange in order to survive. And so if you completely pave your outside layer in wax, you are not going to be able to exchange gas with the outside environment either. This is a concern, a conundrum that faces all land organisms. The need to exchange gas without dehydrating. If you look at the cross-section of a leaf and you magnify sort of that microscopic view, you can see the waxy layer on the outside of the leaf here, guarding the cells underneath that, of course, have to stay very wet. They have to contain a high water content in order to stay alive. Different groups of land plants have different kinds of openings in this cuticle. The oldest of the land plants, the group that split off first after the evolution of the cuticle, is called the liverworts. And they actually only have open pores in facing the surface of the plant. These can't be closed, and so liverworts are prone to considerable water loss. Later on, we see the evolution of what are called stomata. And these are openings that are surrounded by cells called guard cells. The advantage of having guard cells is that they can be, their shape can be changed so that this opening, this stomata, can be closed in order to reduce water loss when the plant starts losing so much water that it's actually in some kind of danger. The non-vascular plants have this cuticle. Some of them, the liverworts, have only pores. Others, the hornworts and mosses, have stomata. But they all lack a structure that is very important in the evolution of land plants. All of these plants are very low-growing plants, and they're restricted to moist environments. And that's because water loss is only one of the problems that a plant faces on land. These early plant lineages don't have any vessels that they can use to transport water from one place to another within their bodies. What they had were simple water-conducting cells, basically empty cell walls made of cellulose through which water could pass. This structure is able to transport water over very short distances, but only very short ones. And importantly, cellulose is not structurally strong enough to support the weight of a plant out of water. Water, because it's very dense, can support the weight of an organism, but on land, most organisms, which are pretty heavy, tend to collapse under their own weight. Cell walls made of cellulose don't stop this from happening. And so the earliest land plants were very low to the ground, and they had to remain in moist habitats in order to get water up through these primitive water-conducting vessels or elements. So these are the liverworts, mosses, and hornworts. The non-vascular plants, again, not a monophyletic group. Together they are known as the bryophytes, but you'll notice that that term is in scare quotes because, again, this is not an actual clade, and the real bryophytes here are what are called the mosses. There are a couple of groups that you ought to know within the non-vascular plants. One is the liverworts, and again, they have a cuticle, and they may have pores, but they lack stomata. The other group that you ought to know is the mosses. The mosses are able to colonize areas that are at least sometimes dry, because what mosses can do is they can become inactive, they can let their tissues dry out and go dormant, and survive with their metabolism rate very low until enough water reaccumulates that they can grow back and start performing photosynthesis again. After the mosses and the liverworts, the other non-vascular plants, split away from the lineage leading to the other land plants that we know, there were a couple of other key innovations. These occurred about 410 years ago, and we rapidly see a lot of the morphological innovations that you see in modern plants appearing in the fossil record.